You want to do the intro?
Welcome.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Unfiltered.
nice. Okay. Welcome to the wonderful, amazing, mind-bending PPC Unfiltered podcast with Cory Lindholm, somewhere on the
Hey,
screen. He's either left or right. He's not up or down, but maybe he is.
I'm up
And
today.
Michael Nadalin, who's right here. He's not left or right anyway. Welcome to the PPC Unfiltered podcast. And yeah, today's episode is being introduced by me, which I realized I probably haven't done in a while. And I've just taken the throne and decided I'm going to do it today. But that's it.
Taking a
Cory,
throne.
how you going, man?
There's no throne. This is a shared throne.
No, mate.
There's a seat for both of us up
There's
here.
a very clear power game here. One is alpha and one is beta. I am the alpha this week, and you are the beta.
Nope. Black and white thinking, sir. I don't
Submit.
accept
Black
that.
and white thinking. Nice, man. How you
I'm
going?
good. I'm good.
What's
Things
the goss?
are
How's
fun.
life?
Things are fun. I'm transitioning to BigQuery for my database for my clients and my data science stuff. So I'm really excited about that. It's a little bit intimidating. I've worked with BigQuery in the past, of course, for querying databases. If you guys are not aware of what that is, it's a Google product. And I've used other ways of doing it for a long time, and everything's all scrambled. There's Parquet files everywhere. Don't worry, it's super secure. Like I'm a crazy person about security of the data, but it's just not as organized as I would like it. And as I'm building out things for scalability and additional security, I'm starting to move into that. So that's been taking up a lot of time. Michael, how about you? What's going on with you?
Dude, I have no idea about that. I've heard about BigQuery, and that's as far as it goes. So everyone else
Right.
who's like me, come with me and have no idea. Yeah, good, man. It's been so busy, like really, really, really busy. Good busy, like getting new accounts live, clients live. Just February's already here. So January was pretty quiet, as in clients were still away. So we're still getting paid management fees and we're still managing the accounts, but most of them were still away on holidays. So it just meant that the time allocation was just doing the work rather than emailing it, like, and jumping on calls. February's hit and we're nearly halfway through Feb. And man, it's just wild. It's busy. It's just like there's a lot happening. I love it. Like I've got 10 meetings today. It's just like
That doesn't sound
I
good
don't
to me. I don't like meetings. I'm not a big fan.
I like talking a lot.
Yeah.
I love
Really?
talking. Yeah. Who would have thought? And yeah, it's just but then I've got to also actually blend in work between that. But that's a blend of like new business calls, client calls, business partner calls, team calls, podcast. So by the end of today, I'm going to feel pretty cooked. But yeah, things are good. Just it's Thursday here, so it's kind of winding down the week. But I'm excited because yeah, we've had new clients go live, and that's what we're going to talk about right now.
Okay,
Ready to
let's
transition
jump
in?
Yes.
Excellent. So the thing I wanted to chat about was new account setups and the time requirements going into it. So I'll just give a bit of a baseline to people who have never set up an ad account before. Well, they probably have. Is setting up an ad account can range significantly for different clients and different businesses. For example, and I was saying this to Cory before, you could literally set up an ad account in 30 minutes, being it a few search campaigns, go into a landing page, and you set up the tracking with Google Tag Manager, with the Google tag, and it's all done. That's on the very simple side. Like I've done that before many a times, and I'm actually going to be doing that today on a very simple account. On the other side, you could be doing a very extreme complex e-commerce build, which is literally building out the Google Ads account, shopping integration feeds, getting the back end to merchants and merchants end to the Google Ads account, the shopping, making sure the shopping profile is correct, all the taxes are correct, and more importantly, the e-commerce tracking is correct. And that can literally take weeks, but more importantly, it'll probably end up taking months because a lot of times with these types of gaps and issues, I've got a client at the moment who's in lead generation, but an industry that they have their own booking system. And it's taken about 8 months to get the real offline data to push back into the account. So the tracking was off for like 8 months, even before I was working with them, like years beforehand. So yeah, what's your experience with like setups, Cory, and just like the timeline of doing it and the complexity? Because I really feel like people are always talking about optimizations, but very rarely it's talked about the setup of accounts, the time investment, the expertise, and all the other things required.
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind that's relevant for both do-it-yourself business owners as well as agencies, and especially agencies, is having your systems and your templates, especially if you have employees doing some of the account management, is to have systems in place that you feel really good about. You've got to have, if everything is custom in the setup process for every single client, it's going to be a nightmare as you try to scale your agency. And if you're a do-it-yourself business owner, at the same time, you're not going to have systems for setting up a new account, but you need to like know your numbers. Like, what are we shooting for? What's the goal? Like, are we being realistic with our goals? These kind of things, because your setup is going to be dependent on those objectives. We've talked about this several times. The business
Yeah.
objective drives the setups and some of the optimizations, right? So just having those either like tactical systems if you're an agency or mental systems if you're a do-it-yourself business owner, in terms of expectations or having realistic expectations, knowing your objectives, knowing what your real KPIs are going to be. I think that that's a great starting place. And then I have a bunch of other thoughts, but I want to let it flow naturally. But I also
Yeah.
think contracts play a big part in this conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. I've noticed that, and I've spoken about this a lot. You've got to, when you set up the account, being it e-commerce or lead generation, you got to make sure that the structure is representative of the business and the lines of business, so it's easier to
Mm-hmm.
report on and it's
Yep.
easier to manage. So you actually know you can allocate budget or report on different areas. But even still, the setup process, it it takes so much longer than you think, because it's not
Yep.
just like you spend a few hours building out the account. It's all the nuances around the side of it, like getting integrations done, which, you think sometimes it may take 5 minutes and then sometimes it may take like weeks because
Yeah.
you're waiting for a developer or something to happen. And these little things that usually are so natural and integrated really do take a lot of time. I understand why Google is wanting to kind of take more ownership for things in those aspects in terms of conversion tracking and those, because it's not that, I actually don't think they're doing it from like some sort of conspiracy where they're trying to like limit the data. I actually just think that they see that there's a lot of businesses who just don't have the technical capability or even the technical
Yeah.
understanding of where the gap is. So they're like, let's just put this like horrible, like just band-aid over it that can fix it for most businesses. Because I see it now, like even just trying to get a DNS record set up for a subdomain for a landing page. Sometimes it literally takes 5 seconds. Like they give us the logins, we set up the DNS for a
Yeah.
subdomain. And sometimes it literally takes weeks and weeks because the hosting doesn't work. They don't have the right, like the hosting level isn't correct. Then like you put it in there and there's a problem with their hosting and it takes weeks, and then there's meetings back and forth. So something that can take literally 5 seconds now turns into weeks of meetings and back and forths and emails. And that's just one micro area, let alone if you're doing it for e-commerce and trying to get the tracking done properly, or the merchant center, or the products aren't pushing through, the product descriptions are not correct, the product title. There's a lot of time that goes into it, where if you have an account that's really easy to set up, sometimes you're like, this is easy, I could do like 4 of these a day. And then there's ones you're like, I don't even think we could do 2 a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just, I only say this because this has been something we've experienced recently. And then, let alone you move to the side if you got some businesses in some gray areas with compliance, and then you're having to
Mm-hmm.
get like business
Yeah.
certificates and all these other financial things that are just like, oh, far out. Like this isn't,
Well,
yeah,
I was just going to say, I mean, as someone who's done this so long and worked with agencies that have a lot of accounts, that this staying organized and especially when you're onboarding an existing account, I think this is so crucial. Is to schedule time for, I'll just call it a pre-onboarding QA.
yeah,
So before you get started with onboarding, take a look so that you can at what's going on, like Michael mentioned with the product feed. How many campaigns are we talking about here? What
yeah,
are all the campaign types the client is using or wants to use? What does the tracking setup look like? What's the history of conversion tracking? Has there been issues? Does that need to be looked into? That's going to be great and valuable, because then you can provide the client with a more realistic expectation of what onboarding looks like. Don't just assume that, like, hey, yeah, it's 2 weeks and just you haven't even looked at anything. It might take
yeah,
longer, to your point.
yeah. Well, that's actually another interesting point that you missed. Oh, I missed, which was, if this is an account you're building from scratch
Yeah.
versus an account that you're taking on. Now, with most of our clients, we do not take on, we don't build from scratch. But my other company where we work with in the property development industry, they don't have ad accounts, and that's fine because it's very simple. And I kind of don't want them to have ad accounts anyway, because they're the type of industry where I'm like, ignorance is bliss. If they have no idea what we're doing, they don't ask questions about it. So we don't talk about the ads, we talk about the outcomes.
The
But
business,
with
yeah.
with most of the clients that we'd be working with Google Ads, ideally, like, you don't have to start from scratch. And that's what I'm talking about, like building it from scratch, because
Yeah.
even building from scratch is like getting billing profiles done, business verifications, like director driver's license and business licenses in the ad account. Like, there's just so much now. Like, you actually forget when you do it for so long and you're so on autopilot that more and more is required as time goes on. And yeah, my recommendation here is for specialists or business owners who are building out accounts, just be really cautious that when you build out an account, you want to do it properly from the start. It really is the foundation. So if you do it correct from the start, it will really set up success from the start. If you
Mm-hmm.
do things wrong from the start, either the wrong campaign types, the wrong structures, just the wrong type of things, the data that's coming in will start pushing out different types of data outcomes because that's the algorithm learning. But also, you'll start going on a rabbit hole where you're trying to optimize something that's fundamentally broken rather than having a really good support base. But
Yeah.
what goes into that is obviously strategy. You got to know what your outcome is, what are the best campaign types, what are the best like methodologies and processes, and then also just the right optimization around that. But I'm just thinking now, and like for me, sometimes I undermine how much I know because I'm like, oh, everyone must know this. Like, my setup is really
Sure.
simple. But then I've audited a bunch of accounts over the last 2 weeks. I'm like, dude, they're really bad. These are people who've been paid good money to manage ad accounts, and the structure and the setup is still so bad. And I'm like, whoa, like the bar is still pretty low. So when you're good, you kind of sometimes go like, oh, I'm good. Like, why would people pay me heaps more just to be like, provide a baseline service? But you realize what most people are doing to set up accounts is still so horrible.
Hmm.
It's like, do you ever audit accounts? You're like, what the hell is going on here? How's this been even running? How's this even
Yeah.
made money?
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, like, sometimes because I am choosy about the clients that I work with because I want to make sure it's a mutual fit. And because I'm expensive. I'll just be honest. I'm expensive because that's well deserved and the value that I provide is enormous
Yeah.
and they've never seen something like that before. So because of that choosiness, sometimes and often I'll look at the account, we're talking and just doing some prospecting. Is this even going to be a good fit? And we talk about the data that's in the account and how it's been set up and what's happened in the past and et cetera, et cetera. And I'll say, look, I don't think you should have anyone that you're paying to manage this for you right now. I think eventually, the data volume scales, it might be a good option for you. But I think whether you pay me to consult for you or whether you pay someone else, I think you just need an expert to kind of sit behind you and look over your shoulder and say, yeah, do this, don't do this,
Yeah.
avoid this completely. That's a dangerous, that's a dead end over there. That is extremely valuable. So don't let perfection be the enemy of good in this
Yeah.
case. When don't over worry about it's going to be the perfect setup and I'm using all the perfect this, that, and the other, and you're downloading all the checklists that are being promoted out there. Don't worry so much about that. Just get an expert to come in and help you if you're trying to do this yourself. Like, even if you're an in-house marketer for a really big brand, actually in that case, especially because you're going to be the one managing the account, but
Yeah.
you haven't done this a lot, that is particularly helpful to have outside expertise just come in, give you some idea of how they would set it up, how they would think about setting it up, and that's going to help to avoid this kind of like, I don't know, worrying about the perfect setup, and then or Michael, you've seen this too, where they over optimize. They've set it up so granularly
Mate, I
because
was just
they've
about
just
to say that, but yeah,
yeah,
I'll
yeah.
let
So
you keep
please
going, then
go.
I'll
No,
start because
that's it.
that's something I want to talk about.
No, go right into
But
it because that's just the main point. I see that
yeah,
a lot too.
because
Yeah,
that's when I'll look at two things. I'll look at number one, the business as a whole. I'm like, is this a good product or service that I feel like
yeah,
I can make a difference on? Now, at this point in
mm-hmm.
my business career, I just like my low hanging fruit is high ticket items, high
Mm-hmm.
ticket either products or services, but that are legit, not like consulting courses or some shit like that. And then so that's number one. Is it like there's a high ROI opportunity? Because ads are expensive, but they're not expensive comparative to if you're making the client 100 grand per sale. So
Right.
if it's a B2B service or B2I being an industrial or, big investments. But then when I look at the account, I love when, I talk to a business owner or a specialist and they're talking a big game. Yeah, I've been watching all these videos and stuff. And then I look in the account and it's like one search campaign that's on like search and display and then like one PMax. I'm like, fuck yes, I love this. The ones I hate is when it's like a business owner who's been running it since like 2010 themselves. And there's like, for like one line of business, there's like 20 search campaigns. And they're like, yeah, this campaign's for like the exact match. And this one's for the phrase match. And this one's for like this exact keyword. So when they split it out way too much, I always say no because I realize the mindset behind those people, it's very old school where they just like want control. And they're also the types of people who cost per lead is so important that like if it went up or down by like $1 or $2, they'd be so sensitive about it. I want clients who they're like, if it goes from the cost per lead is like $80 and then one month it might be 40, the next month is 120. They don't know, they don't care because the outcome of sale is the most important thing. Those, as you were mentioning before, the structure and the setup of those people who do so granular. You've seen those accounts where it's like, there's like, it's more on the search side that this might be like,
Yeah.
campaign 1A for this product, campaign 1B for this exact match, phrase match. And you're like, whoa, this is hectic. And then even in the name, they're like cost per click, like manual CPC or max. And I'm like, dude.
And then there's $6 a day going through each campaign. Yeah. It's giving like,
and they're like,
3 clicks
Cory,
a day.
why is the cost per click gone up from $4 to $4.37? Like, we need to really we've got to
This
make
is
sure
a
that
problem. Yeah.
dude, those accounts, I love seeing because I just look at it and I'm like, this is doomed for failure. And whoever takes this on is doomed for just like misery. Like you never win in those
Yeah,
cases. The
yeah.
clients who always have those structures, you never win. You just never win unless the only time I've had that where I've won was when I was at a previous agency I was working at and I was taking on like big enterprise accounts. And the person who was like running the account internally at their company had left and then I just have the free reign to restructure it and basically everything improves. But when you're working directly with a business owner who's been running this structure for years, not only are you trying to re-educate them, which you're not going to be able to do because they're so set in their ways because they've probably burnt through a lot of specialists,
Probably,
is
yeah.
you're trying to like create a strategy that's not proven for them and they're not open-minded to it. And even if you were to do it, you've got to educate them on the benefit and then prove it within a very short frame because they're probably very sensitive. They're like, if one day's off, they're like, oh, my business is going to fail. Like, do you know those clients that are like, if they have a bad day, it's like
Of course.
the end of the world? Like,
Yeah.
I will say this right now in public. I will never, I'm not going to swear even though I will never work with a business like that. That is like so low quality that if like you have a bad day, that it's like red flags, cost per click goes up by like 40%, conversion rate goes from 10% to 7.5. And it's like
This
if
ad
that's
group had
like
a
how
30% decline in clicks last night.
yeah.
What happened?
Yeah, or like the last hour, like, compared to like, average Monday on 3 p.m. If
Oh,
that's
yeah.
your business, and I'll just say this to any business owner watching it, if that's how you operate, your business will fail in the long run. Because those things that you've had so much control over, I can guarantee you've already lost control over it. And if you haven't yet, you will in the future.
Yeah, I
Like
mean, look,
you will lose the reins on that.
as for agencies or someone that you're looking to take over that for you, if that's you, if this kind of feels like, oh no, they're talking about me, it raises a lot of like the ROI flag for an agency,
Yes.
and reasonably so. It says, man, if I take this on, this is probably going to be, not to just say nightmare, but it sounds like it's not going to be worth our time to do this. In the sense of, look, I mean, these agencies, they're running a business too, right? Their time is valuable. If they see that it's overly granularly and you're not willing to gut it, let them gut that account, which can be reasonable as well. it's going to be something where they say, look, this is just isn't going to be a good fit for us because ROI wise, we're going to be spending so much time micromanaging every little thing and also having to
Yeah.
communicate with you so often that
Yeah.
it's just, again, reasonably not a good fit. So that is also something that's going to come up. So if that's you, and understand what you're getting yourself into, and when you're trying to bring this to someone else to manage, these are things they're going to be thinking, and
Yeah.
hopefully that's beneficial. Hopefully it can help you change your ways a little bit. But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, as far as a practical takeaway, we have touched on in the past, but so, you gotta take into account conversion lag, educate yourself on what that even means, conversion
Yeah.
lag, the time between the click and the conversion, and reporting is not real time, et cetera, et cetera. Those are going to help you to not be so anxiously optimizing things. There is definitely signs here that, and these are things that we see as agencies or consultants, that this is anxiety driven optimization. This
Yeah.
is overthinking 10 clicks, right? This is
But it happens,
it
dude. Like
yeah.
we forget it because once again, this is why when I say these things, I'm in my own echo chamber as a you of the type of clients we work with, and the type of clients we work with has improved over time. And we've lost clients, so those clients that we've lost are probably for a reason, as in their business wasn't good. So sometimes it's easy to have a cognitive bias about like how it is, and then I forget that like these accounts and these businesses still exist. But every time, like 50% of the time when I'm auditing an account, I'm like, that's the norm. Where it's like, it's either the tracking's wrong, the structure's wrong, they're super anxious, super granular accounts, like crazy. And it's like, that's still a big part of the market. And I think what like we're saying here, and I've interrupted you anyway, but it's just like, stop doing that. And if your business requires that, really rethink how Google can operate and use for your business. Because if you're so heavily reliant on Google and that stuff is really high sensitivity for you, your business will be in a struggle very soon. Cost per clicks will rise. You won't be able to control that anymore. There will be like data delay attribution. You'll have more competitors come into the market. Things may change. You may lose control. One thing that actually happens a lot is I've had a lot of businesses come to me on Meta, and they may be doing lead generation in a very specific region of like the United States where it's literally a few suburbs. But because of Meta, how they've changed their targeting from people only in this region to people in this region or recently in there, like that change where it forces people recently in there, their lead quality is like gone horrible from people who might just be in this region to people who could be out here, and now it's
Mm.
prospecting to here, and then their businesses have literally crumbled. Like if your business has to have so much specificity with the ad channels and their settings now, if there's no flexibility there over time, it's only going to get worse. It just can only get worse. That's why you got to be really like, if you don't have flexibility now about numbers, it's only going to get worse. And you've got to literally, that's probably a big risk mitigation thing you've got to look into, because if you're relying on the business success being on very specific things for now, it will change. It will change.
Mm. Yeah, you should expect it to be a dynamic marketplace right over time for sure. Yeah, you
Like
don't want to
Cory,
get
do you
it.
have any clients at the moment, or like I know you would in the past, but let's just say in the past who are like, Cory, I've got this account, cost per lead needs to be $5 because I sell the thing for $15 and it needs to be this exact ROI.
Mm.
It's lead generation. Have you had any of those experiences?
Of course. Yeah, of course.
Do you have any of them now? That's actually what I'm curious about.
No,
Yeah.
no. I mean, again, it's again, just as a business owner, I have to be reasonable with my time as well. And
Yeah.
if I don't think I can help, I'm not going to be a part of that. If I don't think, in other words, if I see that the business is not set up to, I'm not going to say set up to succeed, because you don't always know. Sometimes it's just been set up poorly. And if we give it enough
Yeah.
time and patience and reasonable expectations, and we have some data to work with, we can even if we
Yeah.
don't, sometimes it just needs
But
to
you
be
have an
done
intuition. You
better.
have the intuition.
There is intuition. Yeah, you build that up over time, right?
Yeah.
Over many years, you'll build up a feeling that's like, these are some red flags here. Like, they're watching every guru on Google
Yeah.
Ads, and they're telling you, well, we're testing this in this campaign, and it's because XYZ said, this is a good thing to do because they get 20x, returns or something, and we're doing. And I'm just like, how's the business going? Like, what's going on with product development? How's inventory? Are we managing that well? What's the feed look like? Like, let's get to the real stuff here. Let's stop talking about
Yeah.
hacks and guruism. Let's talk about really how's the business doing? What's the potential that you see? What does the marketplace look like right now? Is there opportunity in the marketplace? How are we doing competitively?
Yeah.
Yada yada. Because that's the real stuff. That's the real stuff that's going to make or break the success of any marketing that you're going to be doing is the viability of the brand in the marketplace, right?
Yeah.
Google Ads
What?
is not going to fix the
No, Cory. No. It's only about my ads and that you're not good enough at ads. It's just my broken business should be fixed by you doing ads, Cory. Okay? Not product development, not product stock level of top sellers, not broken shopping carts that I haven't fixed.
Yeah.
Your ads.
Yeah. So to your question, Michael, I have certainly had those, and I tend to recognize them very, very quickly. And again, I say, you know what, this is probably not going to be a good fit. Again, it's never personal. It's just not a good fit mutually.
Yeah, nice. Cory, I feel like I know the next segment right now. Let's just do it. And we're not even cutting this out. I was just putting the timestamp in. Business industries you'll never work with. Let's go.
Okay.
On the top of your head, what are industries, baby? I know you're mainly e-commerce, but like I know even with lead, we'll talk broadly of e-commerce and then also lead generation. Mm-hmm. Would you want to start with lead generation first? I know you're more e-commerce and that there's a lot in there, but lead generation is quite interesting as well. Are there any industries from past and present for lead generation that either from experience or just, it's all experience, that you're like, I will never work with that type of industry again?
Lead gen wise, I'm trying to think. So at the end of the day, my business, the unique proposition is that I bring data science and statistical method into your PPC management, consulting, whatever it is. So if I don't think that a business can highly benefit from that unique value, I tend to refer them to somebody else because it's just, again, it's not going to be worth anybody's time, and it's not going to be of high value, right? And it's not going to justify the cost for you paying me, right? So because of that, the smaller lead generation clients that are going to be just your normal mom and pops, or like the plumber or the roofing clients, I know at scale, those can be excellent clients. They don't bother you. Generally speaking, you can build cross-account, let's say heuristics, so that that this works for all roofers. There's a lot of agencies like that. That's not my agency. I bring top level value because I can actually find the gold inside of all of this data that you have.
Okay, stop pitching us and just tell us the damn industries, mate.
No,
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
You're crazy. No, really though, that's my real answer, because that's going to often be the qualifier for me as to whether a business is going to be a good fit or not. I mean, industry, I feel like that is pretty granular. I'm not sure that I can think offhand for lead generation. I know for e-commerce, it's pretty obvious that those really low margin, low AOV products, those are not going to be a good fit. I tend to avoid this. The cell phone case companies. There's a lot of those that they sell $3 products or $5 products. There's intense competition. They have unreasonable expectations. Those are usually going to be immediate no's for me.
No, interesting. I think that's really, it's the gauge you got to do this from is the place of like, what service are you offering, and then your prices. But even from performance perspective, I've looked, because we've got a list in our company of like 8 companies that we'll just never work with. But interesting, one of them has changed significantly of recent, which is finance industries. There's a lot of compliance around it. So there's a lot of, gatekeeping, but then also that's really dependent on budget. So if they've got $2,000 a month, you're not going to get anywhere. But if they're like, I've got $20K to start off with, there's more wiggle room. And then if they're more dynamic between like just Google Ads and maybe doing some Meta as well, and knowing that there's the holistic marketing aspect, or they do a landing page. So instead of someone coming going, I'm a finance company, here's $2,000 a month, and just doing Google Ads, versus going, here's 20 grand, Google Ads, Facebook Ads, and a landing page, knowing that you've got more. Well, I know you're just exclusively Google Ads, but we're more lead generation and then e-commerce with Google Ads, is we just knowing that the client has flexibility at a movement. For example, we had a client who came to us. She watched my videos on YouTube and then, signed up with us. Like 11 months later, I was aggressively following up because I'm like, this business is legit. And they, their product, they were just running Google ads and they were getting like 13 leads a month for like $400. And most of the leads were spam. Their product sells for like 50 grand to $200,000. But when I was like I offered the service, but I'm like, you should really do meta ads as well. And now they're literally getting 300 leads a month for like $20. And they're high quality profiled leads, selling from 200 to like they've spent like 20 grand in the last few months and they've made like over $2 million. So like the ROI is
Michael,
there.
stop pitching, man. Who are the industries you don't
No,
want to work
but
with?
what I'm trying to say is also the industry is also dependent on the clients of like openness to multi-channel approach or the back end. So let's go to industries. Number one, supplements. Do not do that. It's just like, no. Number two is marketing services.
Wait. What do you mean just no? You gotta elaborate. What's so bad about the supplement company?
The supplement industry is a lot of people, once again, generalization, not now you're probably like, dude, I work with supplements and they're making millions. Most people coming into the supplement industry, either they're doing it from a drop shipping perspective, so they don't actually have
There's a lot of that. Yep.
yeah, the revenue is not high enough, especially inclusive of the margin, the marketing, and
Policies.
the shipping. Yeah, policies, that's it. And over time, you realize like this is just, unless they're an established brand with a unique product with really good margins,
Yeah.
and like an email list, and they can upsell. And like that's the thing. Do they have the ability to upsell on the website versus are they trying to sell like some like tablets for like $20?
Lifetime value optimization, ladies and gentlemen, very
Yeah,
important. Yep.
but that's a red flag because a lot of these companies don't.
No.
Most of them don't. And then you talk to them about it and they still don't get it. So supplements is usually something because of the compliance that can come around it.
Sure.
Now, the other side of it is if you're kind of finding like you could have a supplement that's kind of like a new trendy one and the cost per clicks are extremely low. So you can like do absolute arbitrage. And if you can have the international one. So supplements is something it's a red flag. People selling marketing services, PPC or like consulting and stuff, because like you're going against every big agency in the world plus every man and his dog who's like, maybe I should just do Google ads for my business for 1 month. So you've got people who are coming in and out of the market. So that's not, the cost per clicks are high, so the economics are wrong, but also the market forces and competition's really high. And most of the time when people are looking for advertising services on Google, it's not a good sign because they're just looking at different agencies rather than going, who's the trusted advisor I've been watching or have been referred to. So it's a different level of intent. What are some of the other ones? I definitely just like low ticket items, just like the ROI is not there. Like I'm in the business of making people I'm in the business of making people millions of dollars more per year, not an extra 50K or something. So anytime it's based around low ticket, even honestly, I won't work with electricians or aircon companies or pest control. I won't do those service-based businesses anymore. It's just too sensitive. When you actually understand like the cost per click and then the conversion rate, then that actually gets you the cost per lead, and then going, well, what's their close rate? And then you're talking about like how fast are you getting onto the phone, and then you end up like business consulting for them and telling them how to fix their processes when you're being paid to do ads, and then they don't have their own internal systems to keep up with the leads, and then they're like, oh, we're not getting many sales, and then it comes back on you. So businesses that are small businesses, service-based, that can't keep up with the lead volume, and then they go, well, our sales aren't good. It's like, we don't have a sales process. And then you end up consulting about sales processes more than just the advertising, which you're meant to be doing.
Yeah, or they hire an agency to do that, and then they won't let you in on anything. That happens a lot too. It's like, well, can we hear what the close rate is and how many phone calls? Like, what's going on internally? And that's proprietary, and we're working together here. We're trying to help this business. What are you talking about? I don't need to know your scripts or anything.
Yeah. I think that sometimes the challenge is, and the companies, like you've got to work with other partner agencies, or like honestly, just like people with incompetent team members. I do tend to like work with companies who you're working with, like It's also like red flags is just the person who you work with. Are you like, is it the business owner or a marketing manager? What's the level of expertise? But as I said before, the other red flags are just people who, business owners who've been running the account themselves
Mm,
for like 10 years. And they're just like, there's just way too much attachment to the account
mm,
and like how it has been done in the past. And like, yeah, I've done this. I'm like, dude, I don't care. Like people are like, this is what this strategy is for. Like if I'm having an onboarding thing and we're emailing maybe a bit back and forth, the difference between if they're sending me like essays about the account versus just like a few lines, like as soon as I see that essay stuff, I'm like, nah. It's like I'm not, because that's setting the frame of the communication of like the depth of information and depth of detail on
mm,
each communication. I'm like, dude, I'm running a company here. I'm not like your assistant. Like I'm not going to be able to have that.
mm.
I'll have reporting that gives me the data that's representative of that, but I'm not going to be able to retain all of that in my brain. I'm still a human.
And to your point, it's not always a trainable or teachable thing, right? In some cases, it's just sort of anxiety driven, and
Yeah.
their own personalities is just flowing through that, and they can't really disconnect between this being a marketing objective and this being a stream of revenue from like I just want to control everything in my life. And to be honest, I think there's just this. It's hard for some people to really disconnect between those two things, and
Yeah.
they get really obsessive, and they enjoy it. Part of them kind of enjoys the little analytical parts of it,
Yeah.
and then they have a really hard time delegating that out to an expert that can handle
Yeah.
it for them. Yeah, that needs the autonomy to do a good job. To be honest with you.
Yeah. So I've got the list here. I think I've gone over them. Red flag
Okay.
industries: consulting services,
Okay.
consulting training, e-commerce for low price products, financial products, financial services, financial training, uh, marketing services, marketing training, supplements, plumbing, electrical, air conditioning. Basically, what I've said.
Yeah.
But that's another one, like the training. Running ads for trainings as well, because just depending on the training, like you're going against everyone. You're going against like Udemy, who have probably
Mm-hmm.
like $100 million budget a month, and just trying to like get your little carve out there. It can be
I'm really
hard.
surprised you didn't say legal services because I hear that a lot with other agencies. Like, man, I get that they could be highly profitable for us, but the guidelines and the policies and the cost per click, the competition is just and the need, the absolute need because of the steep competition for really robust, amazing landing pages and all that stuff. I tend to find that that is also a very challenging industry, and there tends to be agencies that really try to just monopolize
Yeah,
that particular
I, I,
service.
I think if for me personally, for those types, it's like insurance. I love insurance because, for example, what I don't like is like home loans. That's actually very different because a lot of there's like mortgage brokers who are just, doing selling mortgages. You're going against the big banks or the big mortgage broker. You've got nothing there. In terms of legal services as well, it's like it's pay to play. Like you can only survive with a big budget. If you've got a small budget, you're not going to get by. Like you're just not.
Yeah.
Unless the service you're offering, especially legal, is like very specific one thing, and you can go after that exact match term in a
Mm-hmm.
very specific area, and just knowing that your conversion rates should be around like for those types of services, you need to be at like 30 to 40%. Now that is really high, but if you're going after very niche keywords and the landing page is extremely niche, just talking about that one service with a really clear offer, you
Mm-hmm.
can get it up to there. For legal services, I actually think it's not a red flag. It's only if the business is a red flag, they're like, we don't have enough budget or they're not
Right.
willing to invest in a landing page.
Yeah, they need to do a lot of work on their end for sure. It can't just
Yeah.
be up to the account manager to do
Yeah.
everything.
They can't be like a
Michael,
legal service that are offering like 30 things because, and then they're like, we want to target all of them. It's like one legal service, and more importantly, legal services that are already going well, not like, oh, we've got this legal service that no one wants, and you're just trying to like push a dead horse. It's like this is we make a lot of money off this. People actively look, but we just want to enhance this part of our business. Like
yeah,
going in the slipstream of success, not trying to like
mhm.
make something that's horrible work. At least to
and
start off with.
And I just want to say too, for people, this isn't trying to bash on those industries, or if you started a business, it's not to make you feel bad about getting into that industry.
Cory's not
Just
speaking on behalf of both of us. I'm here to bash. He can be the positive. I'm here to bash.
we're just telling you honestly that these are very challenging, and in some
Yeah.
cases not worth the ROI as an agency owner to take on these accounts. And again, it circles way back to the beginning of our conversation around having systems in place. If you are big on promoting supplement companies and that's what your agency likes to focus on and niche down on, you probably have some really good systems in terms of staying in compliance, writing product descriptions that aren't going to get flagged by Google, stuff like that, right? So you really do, if you're looking for an agency to do those things, make sure you're looking for one that does tend to niche on those things, or at least has worked with a lot of companies like that. Otherwise, you're going to be running in circles, and it's just going to feel like, we're not getting anywhere. So,
Yeah.
Michael, I did a quick search in my Google Drive because I was like, maybe I think I might have written something like this a long
Yeah.
time ago, and I did create like a list
Nice.
of industries. So we've talked about a lot of them. I'm just going to very quickly cover them. Healthcare.
I'm going to write them down in my list as well, guys. So like I'm actually learning here. Remember, we're both always learning.
Of course. So healthcare and pharmaceuticals, especially pharmaceuticals. Those, man, talk about navigating policies, and depending on how ethical you want to talk here, there's some ethical concerns that some advertisers have around promoting prescription drugs and things like that. But very strict regulations, especially around advertising claims, stuff like that. You've got to walk a very narrow path, but still be a good salesperson in your marketing. So that's
heal your C with this pill. C means. So, interesting healthcare, because that's quite broad, because that could be from just like intense healthcare for stuff that's the big C word, or it could just be things that is just like muscle rehab. Oh, that's another one. Chiropractic.
Oh, that's why I keep it broad, right? I remember doing that because I used to specialize in chiropractic marketing, because I had worked internally at a place that had chiropractic as a service. Woo, it's a lot of privacy concerns that you got to be, the HIPAA and the GDPR and all that stuff. You got to be you're walking very narrow line, which can be restrictive from a growth standpoint, and just your keyword restrictions and the required disclaimers, and just there's a lot of hoops to jump through. A lot of agencies don't see the ROI in that, so that can be tough.
And you got to think about competition as well. Like chiropractic's a very interesting area for who it attracts, and it has like a bit of a multi-level marketing, kind of like that type of energy, that type of world to it.
It can,
and a lot of people, use direct response and marketing. So you're also going against people who are aggressively marketing as well. So let alone the Google and the ad platform restrictions, but you've also got a high volume of competition of other people who are
that's a good point
doing it.
Right. The stakeholders that you're reporting to, or that you're working with, they also tend to be, I'd say, they're more sales oriented, because they need that as a part of promoting their own business. So you're also going to be working with someone that may be hard-headed with things, or a little bit stubborn, or they're coming with a lot of biases around what works and what doesn't. That can also be pretty challenging.
But Cory, I saw at this 3-day event that people are getting $4 leads for their business.
Yeah.
They don't talk about the quality of the leads anyway. But keep going on.
Number 2, finance and insurance. You just covered that. Right now, I also I'm not opposed to working with an insurance provider, because that can be really great ROI for both parties. Again, very steep competition. CPCs can be sky high, especially for very high value search terms and things like that. Obviously, you're bidding at the keyword level, but you get how it works. Also, the compliance guidelines, it really fits into the same thing with the healthcare and stuff like that. It's a very highly regulated environment, if you will.
Yeah. The insurance ones, I like that. I'll just say this from experience with the multiple companies I've worked with. The reason why I really like, and I don't have an issue with it, is because they know they need to spend a lot of money. So the benchmark is high mentally. Number 2, they know the cost per click's high. But number 3, 99% of the time, the accounts are horribly built. So just a basic restructure and just restructure the account will turn it around instantaneously. So it's not, very rarely would I ever have seen an insurance account where I'm like, whoa, this is like so granular. It's like every insurance service they have in like one campaign. So there's no like budget allocation, and just by a simple restructure, that old data that was in that campaign doesn't matter, because the structure is not representative of the business. Personal opinion, but that's just, once again, experience versus just like, it's my direct experience.
Of course. Last four I'll just group together because
Yes.
I mean they're a little more fun to talk about. And I actually
Yeah.
I just for my own childish reasons kind of enjoyed advertising for these businesses
Yeah.
because it was so challenging and it was so different and it was just very edge, on the edge of things. It was gambling, tobacco, cannabis, and anything adult related. And ladies and
Yes.
gentlemen, you know what I'm referring to there. But they're for Kegel exercises. But Google
Yes.
doesn't see them that way. Believe me, I've been there. I've done that. I've
Yeah.
done the advertising in the beginning of my career with all of those industries. And again, very restrictive from an advertising and marketing standpoint, regardless of the channel, guys. I mean, this is not just a Google
Yeah.
Ads thing, right? So a lot of things you have to stay within policy, age restrictions, sometimes regional compliance, which goes back to like finance industry. Sometimes you'll have
Yeah.
regional compliances that you have to be
Yeah.
careful of. Those are all just obviously challenging, but I did have them
Yeah.
in my list
Yeah,
here.
that's actually interesting. I've had a few of those come over my way over the years. I'm like, no. I just know it's a hard no because I'm like, I'm not like the amount of time you spend in just to fixing compliance is just not
Mm,
worth it. Like
yeah.
looping back to what we spoke about at the start about setup accounts, it's like when you've got clients who are like they're selling, I don't know, like I don't know, a dress online, you're not going to have compliance versus someone who's doing any of those ones that you've just mentioned. And the amount of hours that go into like looking up Google's policy, emailing them, sitting on a live chat, going back and forth over
Oh,
emails for
yeah.
weeks, it's just not worth it. It's really not worth it because the ROI on your time and your mental time it's just not there. And I get
Mm,
when you're at the start of your journey, you got to just take on work just to either get experience or just, keep the ball moving. But there
yeah.
comes a point where you're like, no matter what, no matter like these things, there are going to be external factors like Google's regulations or Facebook's regulations and the external market factors where you're like, I'm not going to take this on. Why would I want to be taking on a like something that's fundamentally hard when I could just get another client that's just like pays me the same amount and there's no headaches.
I think that's a good way to wrap because I know we're out of time here. Just a good way to wrap this, right? It's what you're saying. It has to be mutually beneficial. So if you're in this industry, this is your business. Just understand the challenges that you're going to have either hiring somebody that's willing to take this on because this is the thought process that they're having if they have good experience here. But also these are the challenges that you can expect. So if you're thinking about doing Google Ads, Facebook Ads, these are going to be a lot of the challenges you're going to run into. So know that going into it, this is not going to be an easy thing. It's you're going to be constantly fighting compliance issues or steep competition, and that can be, it's okay if that's your only means of doing marketing right now. Well, just know what you're getting yourself into, and
Yep.
hopefully this is also helpful to agencies and marketers when they're thinking about client acquisition and should we even be going after or taking these types of accounts on? Is it not necessarily like it could be easier for us, so let's avoid it. But it's more, is this going to be a good ROI for us?
Yep.
Honestly, like, is this even going to be mutually beneficial
Yep.
for everybody? I think these are just things that are going to give some practical takeaways, and hopefully it was helpful for you guys to at least consider. These are going to be some tough industries to work with. So, Michael, I appreciate you bringing up the subject.
Nice.
It's an interesting one.
You're welcome, mate. I always bring the goods. Cory, Lindholm, Michael, Nadalin. How do people
Yes.
find you, Cory?
Adsbycory.com, YouTube, Spotify, and occasionally on Twitter, I'll throw something up. Michael?
Nice, mate. MarketLead.com.au, MarketLead on YouTube, and Michael Nadalin on LinkedIn. Guys, thank
Cool.
you for watching. Hope you
Yes,
enjoyed.
thank you.
Like, comment, share, subscribe. Say it's the best podcast ever. We'd appreciate it.
All right, thanks, guys.
See ya.